Hello, everyone. My name is Larry Green, and I'm excited to sit down and to have a conversation, a real talk conversation, where we get authentic about different topics that are top of mind for us in the Black community. Now, today, we're going to be talking about something that's very unique and special, especially given the time that we're in. As of right now, this is the summer of 2024, and we have a presidential election that is around the corner. And with that, especially with election years, there are a number of things that can just get going and can fire up and motivate people in a number of different ways. And specifically, we're going to be talking about today is the Black vote. What that means, we'll unpack it. We'll look at the historical pieces of it, and then we'll look at what's at stake for today. But before we dive into that, I wanted to introduce the panel, those of us who will be joining in on this conversation. And so, David, I wanted to let you introduce yourself.
Great. My name is David Washington, Seven Hills Development Group, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here and to participate in such a poignant conversation at this time.
Excellent. Yeah.
Dr. Zalima Blair, Interim Dean, School of Business, McGarvis College, City University of New York. Happy to be here.
Excellent.
Mike O'Brien. I'm a financial consultant from Harlem, New York, and I'm glad to be here.
Excellent.
Adrienne Felton. I am special advisor to one of the commissioners at New York City's ACS, but I'm also a political strategist, and I'm also from Harlem.
Excellent. All right. So to start off, I wanted to ask each of you in this presidential or election year 2024, because there's not only the presidential election, there are a number of other elections that are also happening. I wanted to ask all of you, what's at stake for you in this election?
For me, to be perfectly honest with you, it's not only the ticket for president, but it's also the down ballots. And, for me, I look at the broader perspective of what the vote means. Yes, we have to have Ms. Harris in office. That's a non-negotiable, unequivocally.
Okay.
She is the most talented. She is the one that represents the needs of the greater good of the country. And then along with that, we have judgeships that are at stake also on the ticket, particularly in the state of Maryland. So for me, the stakes are high. They are very high. And it's very important that we get out and vote in ways like never before. Like we rallied for Barack. This is another time, but this is another era, and this is a great opportunity to demonstrate to the world that we will be the ones as a community of people globally that will make the difference.
Wow. Yeah. So we'll go to you, Adrienne, and after that we'll go to Mike.
Well, this is an unprecedented time because we've already seen what we had in Donald Trump, and we've already seen the workings of him through the Supreme Court justices they've chosen coming up with these unprecedented demigod type of things, allowing the president to do what he wants. That's one of them. Roe versus Wade. When people vote for a president, they don't realize the power that they're giving this individual. And what's at stake for us is, for me, thinking him getting in that seat and undoing all the work of our people that we've worked really hard to do. We're talking about just fundamental rights of being here as a people. So the midterm elections, says a lot with who's in office. And you don't have a good Congress, you can have a great president, but if you have a Congress that's fighting against you, it's an uphill battle. So, before I take over the whole show, I'm gonna leave it right there because I can keep going.
All right,
a lot on what's at stake.
All right, yeah. So Mike and then Zalima.
I think what shows for me is the structure or the current institutions that are involved, their leadership, to let them know that the power comes from the people. Because if you look how it was originally set up, Kamala probably would not have made it in the primary if it was a traditional primary.
That's true.
So someone would say, well, something must be wrong with the system. How come this person is getting all this energy, all the support? However, if she would have gone through the regular quote unquote process, which we know has a lot of stuff that's baked into it, and the people didn't decide. So I think this is a prime example of the people on the ground, the boots on the ground, have more impact than what you say the higher ups and the structured people.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Zalima.
For me, what's at stake, I look at, pocketbook theories, the economic theories. Are we going to be better off a year from now? And were we better off a year ago? So, um, economically, what about the federal bureaucracy? Are young people going to have jobs? Are college graduates going to have jobs? We going to appoint the right people to the federal bureaucracy? Are the right individuals going to be secretaries of and assistant secretaries of HUD, of things that affect Black people, housing and urban development, which brings out these vouchers, right? Section 8 and all these different things. So it's really, for me, about the federal bureaucracy, the jobs that are going to be given to our people, to do the right things by our communities and, help us to, climb the ladder once again. This can't be something that comes around every half a century, every 5 decades that we're getting the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, then we have to wait 50 years more to get. So no, we need to have a good transition team in place that's going to hand, our VP, soon to be president, that document and say, here's what we need you to deliver on public policies for our community.
Yeah. So a lot of great things there. And actually, Zalima, I'm gonna go off of what you just mentioned. When it comes to the Black vote, I wanted to unpack that, and I wanted to start just with a little bit of the historical pieces of that. And so you made reference of it earlier. The Black vote goes back to 1870. So 15th Amendment, post-Civil War time period. That's when it begins, if you will. Then you fast forward 50 years later, 1920. 19th Amendment, women's suffrage. And so that's another piece of it. And then you fast forward to 1965, Voting Rights Act, a big moment in the civil rights era from then. And so, as we all know, there is a number of other activities, actions, and things that happened within that time period. But the thing that, for me, that I get from that is 1870 to now, that's just roughly 150 years. And so the idea of the Black vote or inclusive voting, in my opinion, is a fairly new idea when it comes to America, how America was started, and just with the machine of the political process. And so with that, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that or additional things that you may have. If anybody wanted to jump in and share on that.
I'm going to jump.
Yeah.
It's new, but it's been impactful.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I know that very few, especially at a national level, elections happen without us. The thing is, it happens without us. I don't know if that makes sense. You come for our vote, but what do we get from the vote? People will say, well, you're talking about a pay-to-play situation. It's like, no, we're not, because we're not looking for a contract and you do this for me and you get this contract. We're talking about overall our vote, coming in a collective to seek our vote, but when the policies are on the table that benefit us as a people, that impact us as a people, that's null in a lot of respects. And if it is happening, it's happening without us at the table. And a lot of times, you'll have people who are not Black telling us what's best for us, where we need to be at the table saying what works for us and how it impacts us. And I think that a lot of times we moved away from that because we'll get into a space where it's an uncomfortable conversation to talk about a Black need, but it's not an uncomfortable conversation for you to look for the Black vote. You know what I mean? So I think that those levels of discomfort come from soul searching, because if you're talking about it, the squeaky door gets the oil. If the door is squeaking, we must give the oil. It doesn't matter who's there, right? So you put us in this circle, in this box for the need, but we're not in this circle in the box to make sure that
The follow through happens. Okay.
There's equity, So that's something that I think that we should be able to address without it being uncomfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any other thoughts?
Well, it's always about race. When voter turnout had been steadily declining in presidential elections, most of the time people would say it's because, we put a new segment of the population in. We gave women the right to vote, right, with the 19th. So voter turnout declined because we have more people in the electorate. Then, we gave 18-year-olds the right to vote, so voter turnout declined again. No, it's because you have to make people politically efficacious enough to vote. So race, as we saw, was a factor in 2008. Race is a factor when we're on the line. So now here we go, 2024 once again, and it's race again. And when you see that happens, blacks turn out more than any other racial or ethnic group. And normally it's a divide between the middle and upper income individuals and low income individuals. But when there's a candidate of choice at the table or on the ballot, we come out and we stay together. So you really don't have to worry about who we're going to vote for because race matters.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just one thing that's a little bit exciting about this particular election, there's so much that, when I look at it, that there's a zeitgeist, there's an energy. Like I remember getting a text and someone did sent me a text to the extent that Joe Biden is stepping down. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Because
especially at this point in time. Yeah.
Right, because, like after we saw, the debate,
Yeah.
America was concerned. Let's just keep it 100.
Yeah.
Because we family here, and
Yeah.
you already know what happened. We was like, America's in trouble.
Yeah.
And you was able to really see the dumpster. He was chopping at the bits because the dumpster knew, oh, I got this in the bag. And then, there was that quiet lull period. And I have to honestly say, in my core, in my gut, even when it was with Obama, I was in the barbershop in New York, and I was telling cats, yo, man, there's this senator coming out of Chicago. There's a group of women that has been supporting him back in the grassroots level. I'm telling you, Barack Hussein Obama is going to be president. They was like, bro, that's never going to happen.
It's crazy, yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. And here again, there's a different set of circumstances. This woman did run for president.
She did.
She backed out. And let me tell you, I had her shirt on the day after, and I went on record. Whatever she's saying, I'm with her. And it was because now, at this time, in this season, it's not only about us, but we are going to be the candidate, and we are, because we demonstrated some things that I don't necessarily wish was revealed, but we came together in a matter of hours, not days,
Yeah.
in hours. And I'm not going to speak to the issue of who came together, but I think those up in the community know who came together. And they came together, that particular group that we have, and those sisters ignited
Yeah.
a spark,
That's right.
then a flame. Okay? You understand what I'm talking about.
Unapologetically.
And it's going on, and those sisters then said, we going after our brothers. This is what we doing. Which of you are going to stand up and support this sister, our woman, this candidate, not only because of her skin color, but because she's competent, she's capable. And we're just seeing young people ignited. There's a fire. I'm getting goosebumps just talking to you all. We're up here in the Vineyard.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing young people. I've been walking around intentionally. Like, I'm not talking about it. I have these shirts that I wear, that I've been wearing, and people are like, I'm with you, I'm with you. And I'm seeing people engaged and being excited about the process. And this is a time, but I'm not excited so much about the candidate, but I believe something is going to happen. Barack took us here. I think this sister in the position and what she's known and what she's learned and how we've seen how the presidency could be used with the executive orders, I believe we're about to witness something that we never thought really possible. And it's our turn, and it's now her turn.
That's right.
And that's what excites me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, this is good.
But
This is good.
I'm getting
Yeah.
goosebumps.
this thing
too.
is
It's
Ah.
big. And that's why we're having the conversation. This is real talk right here about real top of mind issues. And so with that, I wanted to progress the conversation, thinking about the black vote, the black cohort. Now I'm thinking about the diversity within that population. And so where I think about the conservative points of view, perspectives, liberal, if you will, points of view, perspectives is there. There's a generational dimension that's within there, a gender dimension there too, even a class dimension, you mentioned that as well. And class to me can also run along the lines of just educational levels too. And so when it comes to the black vote, I also think about, is it one monolithic group that thinks the same, has the same experiences, and therefore this? Or is there a number of nuance within there? And could Kamala take care of our needs in that way? Or what do you think? So just thoughts from anybody on
Well,
that.
she runs the gamut, right? She checks a lot of boxes. Age, she can relate to multiple generations. Gender, she checks that box. Asian, so we have a group of Afro-Asians, right? Let's talk about the different groups, right? There's African American, Afro Latino, Afro Caribbean, Afro Asian. She checks those boxes. So we just have to make sure that our Afro Latino individuals come along, and I think they will. She checks the box of, as I mentioned, the Asian, so multiple generations, and so also she could relate to being in college and that struggle, and being with both parents and a single parent, right? She could relate to the Afro-Caribbean group because her father's Jamaican. I mean, she could speak to any group. Now, I would challenge her a bit further and say, speak to individuals who, when you were in college, not speak to them, but not to them. We know they have to be nonpartisan, but say things like, I'm challenging student government presidents to, step up and rally people, or we need to speak to them and say, these individuals in colleges, you need to vote, you need to bring your 18-year-old counterparts to the poll. Parents, bring your whole family to the poll. Most of the time, there are 5, 6 people in the household who can vote. So don't just vote alone. We don't have to go next door. We could go right in our household and come out to vote. And so there are multiple other issues too. We blacks, we're part of the black vote. We're union members. We're church goers. So we have this psychological orientation about us. We believe in political trust. We have to trust the system to do the right thing by us. We're part of PTAs. So we have multiple organizations who run that intergenerational and multi-ethnic cohort that we could speak to and bring along with us.
Yeah.
I
Now,
agree.
one thing,
I agree, but one of the things with us, we've been, as a people, seduced into believing that our vote doesn't matter, right? So those persons who don't want our vote to be effective have been very successful at that. They've been effective at that. So I think that this opportunity, she does have to educate and to re-establish that right? For those that our vote does matter, because anyone working really hard for you not to have something, there's value in it, right? To just let people know, to let people know that your vote does matter, that weighs a lot with us. When Z just said about, having that level of trust, I think this is we could change the trajectory of our futures if we just step in there and make sure that education is there. I was just having that earlier conversation of how civics is no longer in school, right? So, we could turn on the TV and see Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock.
I'm
Just a bill, yeah. I remember that.
Remember that? So we have to go back. This is an opportunity to educate.
Yeah.
And when that education, that's power, that's force, that's a lot. And her doing that, so every time she's at that podium, every time she's having that conversation, to throw some education and some reassurances in there and you just reestablish our stake in this world.
Yeah.
That, to me, will be pivotal, and it's going to shift a lot of our young people to re-energize them even more. I think that's missing.
Now, one thing I'm curious about is the black conservative perspective. Is that a voice that could get lost, perhaps, in the energy? Could that could it make sense for a black conservative lived experience or perspective to not vote for Kamala Harris,
well,
or do something different?
We have friends who are,
Curious about that,
who
yeah.
are across the street.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes we love each other from across the street,
Right.
but sometimes we meet in the middle of the block. And what I mean by that is, I do have some friends who are conservatives, and they are not supporting Donald Trump because it doesn't make sense for them too. They are not crazy about her, but they're doing the less of the evil game. You know what I mean? And you do have some conservatives, even some Democrats, because I've always said that the Tea Party they're crazy, and sometimes the progressives are the blue crazy, right? So we have extremes on both ends.
sides.
But at the end of the day, when you walk in a room, you see a black person. You don't see a Republican. You don't see a Democrat. And it depends.
That's what you see
on,
first. Yeah.
It depends on what your state of mind is. Because sadly, some of us are into the protectionism world, and some of us deal with the realities of what's before us.
Yeah.
That no matter what your political ideology is, you're a black person in America, and it will impact you no matter who you vote for. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And on that same note, as Black Americans, no matter how high we get or how much education, our family members, our friends are all caught up in either the justice system, student loans, hospitals. So I think as a people, we do believe on pulling people up as a people. And I think that's where we resonate with a particular candidate. And I think it's the quality of the candidate. When people are inspired by a candidate and they feel that he's for the people, I mean, if we go back to history, we look at Adam Clayton Powell, we look at Maynard Jackson. I mean, these are people we would consider elite, atop of their game. They could have just ran off and just been by themselves, but they helped the least of these. And I think we resonate as a people, no matter how high we are up on the ladder or how low, as a people, we want to lift everybody up because we realize we were down that way, as well as we have family members who are still down.
Yeah.
And they still are family members. We still go to the same picnic, the same family reunion. So we want to help everybody. And it's not just about me getting what I can get by myself. We want to lift everybody up. Yeah. And I think that's what the black vote is
As you
about.
rise up, lifting up others.
It's like often said in our community, listen, I'm a registered independent. And fiscally, there are things that align with me that are Republican. But when it comes socially, I'm concerned about housing. I'm concerned about the needs of the least of us, right?
Yeah.
Because in our community, we've been taught as a community, no matter how high you rise, you have to be concerned about the greater good, and that's why I love the Kwanzaa principles, because those principles are something that we employ into our community, and those are lived experiences, right? So life has been good. I don't want to pay taxes, right? So I want to pay the least amount of taxes. I mean, you look at some of these athletes or look at their earnings. You make $50 million, you got to give $25 million luxury taxes?
Ouch.
I'm not really with that. You build a great company. Like, my dream and my desire is that I want to see people who look like us, melanated people who build multi-billion-dollar corporations, right? Like, Teslas of the world, right? But I want them to look like us. But when you build those huge companies, it's important that, you are not taxed and you're penalized for your success. For your success.
Yeah.
Because wealth is important. There's a saying that I normally say, freedom ain't free without financial freedom. And when you have financial freedom, you have the ability, the capacity to move and to do things. So the vote and the process and who we are as a people, none of these things are mutually exclusive. And I believe this is how people try to pit us against each other.
Okay.
And we are now, I like to believe the best of us. We are above that. Like, you can't pull the okey doke on us and trick us and tell us, oh, don't vote and try to dissuade us. You can't lie to us anymore. We know what time it is. There's Chat GPT. We got smartphones. I don't need you to fact check for me. I was at the barbershop when we started first getting these smartphones. Cats was talking about, oh yeah, I got this car, I paid this. And then another brother in the barbershop, bro, no you didn't. MRSP on that says this. Brother, you lying. So
in a split second.
Yeah, so brown people, we've always used technology and fact check. So with the tools that we have, the technology that we have, we're in a better position. And I've always believed that technology allows for us to level up. And in this election, it's playing a role because information is getting out faster than ever before, and we are able to use that. But to this whole point about, the conservative and some of us are not, I believe as a people, we understand what's at stake.
Okay.
Yeah, but let me, if I could jump in there.
Yeah.
Race matters. I'm going to go back to that.
Okay.
Race matters.
Okay.
Race matters. And so, like we said, whether you're Republican or Democrat, when you see that person, and Kamala is a moderate. Most of her policies, if you follow her from when she was, the AG or the district attorney, she's been a moderate individual. She has not swung left or right, and she won't let anyone. She won't let a Tea Party or the progressive pull her to those ends of the political spectrum because she's smart and she knows she has to pick up the independents.
And she's a manager.
Yes. She
And
knows
she's
she has
an
to pick up,
administrator.
but she knows she has to pick up those independents. She knows she has to pick up those people that are registered as blanks. You know what I mean? And she knows she has to be loyal to those strong Democrats as well. So
Yeah.
You're right. But I just to your point about economics, some of us, which we need to make sure that we keep this momentum going.
Yeah.
Because we'll have that moment and then we'll go back. Because some of us realize that we operate better and we operate better in a collective.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? That's our principle. And some of us, we get a nice piece of property, a little bit of grass, and we think we're arrived and we think it doesn't affect us anymore, but it does. So even you as an individual may not see an impact as an individual, but as a collective, it does impact us, right?
Yeah.
Just like, for instance, how well a school does in our district has a lot to do with how much our property is worth.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think it doesn't affect you. So you have the same property in one area and in another area, identical homes. But because that school is performing well and your school in your area is not, when they do the equation of property value,
The
you're
valuation.
losing wealth. So everything is impacting us in our neighborhoods, even if we think we arrived and we think that, it doesn't affect us. That's not me. That's those people. No, it's us people.
It's us.
Yeah.
So this momentum that we feel during this, it feels great, but we need to let it consistently feel great so we can consistently combat those things that are challenging us. Because I am with race matters.
Yeah.
It does. It's
Okay.
very
Yeah.
impactful.
Yeah, I love it. A couple quick things before we pivot to the last piece of our conversation. I'm loving what everybody is saying here. And this is real talk. Different things of how it lands on us as individuals as well as a collective. You mentioned Kwanzaa. I also thought about the African indigenous philosophy of Ubuntu, which is the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, collectivism, and that goes back centuries,
Right.
centuries of things. And so it makes sense. It's in our DNA to do that. And then at the same time, too, I think you both said this. I supported Barack Obama. I did not personally support Donald Trump, but from a personal taxes point of view, my taxes did go up under Obama.
Right.
And they went down under Trump.
Right.
And it was like, but at the same time, the bigger collective, there's a bigger thing at stake.
Right.
And I was actually fine with that because, and this gets to the last piece we're talking about. I'm a parent, children, there'll be upcoming voters here, next generation. And that's the piece I wanted to pivot into for our last piece is activating the Black vote. Because all of this is great, but it can evaporate if people don't literally show up to the polls, not just for the presidential election, but up and down the ballot,
Right.
as you mentioned. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on that. How can we get as much participation as possible when it comes to the Black vote from an age point of view, class, all the different directions that we've played with?
Real-time impact. Because we do things in such a general way. We need to show real-time impact. If you don't vote this way and you vote this way, this is what's going to happen.
So
Project
educating.
2025 is a real document. I read through it and I thought I was watching a sci-fi movie, but honestly, this document is a dangerous document.
Right.
It is not something to play with, and I do believe in my whole heart that if Donald Trump becomes president, that will be his manifesto. And knowing that that's a possibility as a Black woman in America, I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that doesn't happen. And I think that to just answer that question is show a tangible, real-time impact of your options, and that will activate this vote.
Okay.
I also think early voting has had an impact. Maybe so much, not so much
okay.
in
Yeah, early
New
voting.
York,
Yeah.
but if you think in Georgia and Atlanta area, that had extreme impact with the senatorial race with Senator Raphael Warnock, to the extent that they even had to go to court to get an extra day after Thanksgiving because they had all this, the rules were making. So I think that has made a big impact, because when you think about it, if election's only one day, you always have an excuse why you didn't do it.
True.
I had to go to school, I went to work, but if it's like a month or 2 months, there's no excuse. And even in Georgia, they had this thing about souls to the polls. So even on Sundays, they would go from church. So I don't think that's universal throughout America, but definitely in Georgia.
Okay.
And maybe that, if that gets picked up in all the other areas, I think that will be an impact, particularly in the Black community.
Yeah. So impact, early voter
voting.
participation, so it expands the window of when you can participate. Yeah.
I think messaging. The message has to be on point. You know, Barack had "Yes, we can." Everyone knew what that meant, right? I can do it. You know what I mean? Not just them kind of thing. You fast forward to 2016. Hillary had "I'm with her," and I'm like, you know, there could have been a better line, but you know, I'm not part of the
messaging. Yeah.
no, I'm not part of the campaign.
Right.
So when Kamala people were saying I'm with her, I said I don't want to hear that line again. You know what I mean? Tell me why. And so she has to have a message for the community. As I talked about the federal bureaucracy, she has to talk about, you know, how toe to toe how this is going to be our manifesto. What are we going to give to the community? What are we saying to people? I remember one of the most powerful moments in Barack's campaign was when he spoke. You remember when his pastor was caught on tape saying all these things, and his campaign didn't want him to speak, and he said, "No, I have to speak," because he knew he had to speak to us. So the messaging is the most important thing, and how she does it and what she gives us both at the federal level and how it's going to come down to us on the grassroots level is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Bring us
with
home.
you.
Go ahead.
You know, I definitely agree with it. At the end of the day, Kamala, if you are watching, we need a hit list.
We want you to watch,
You know, in
Kamala.
our community, we need to know you want our vote, and we plan to vote for you, but we want something in exchange. We
That's
need
fair.
to know that we are going to get fair treatment for our historically Black colleges. That is something that you are going to stand up for. We're going to get the funding that we need, that we are going to get the proper education that we're getting.
Loan forgiveness. Okay.
You know,
Student loans, yeah.
Listen, you know, I'm not going to touch that one. However, there has to be things for our businesses, because I watch CNBC and Bloomberg all day long, and I am with these folks saying that she's not for business. That doesn't even make any sense. She's of a generation, she understands, she embraces technology. She was raised in California. She understands what goes on in Palo Alto. So she needs to let people know she is pro-business, and she's about seeing that. And we need to know, for our community, we get you elected, we need to know that there's going to be micro funding for our women-based businesses, women-owned, minority-based businesses. There's going to be dollars set aside so we can grow our own businesses, so we can become self-sustaining. It's not about a handout. We as a community of people, I don't know where people get off on this. They think that Black people, we want something. We want an opportunity. We want a fair chance. We want equity. We want ownership, home ownership. What programs are we going to do to get people out of rentership? We are supposed to be above and not beneath, and I'm tired of seeing people in our community where we're borrowing. We need to create our own financial institutions where we grow our own wealth and we build wealth and make this whole thing of intergenerational wealth real, because that's the thing that's going to level us up. We're at a frontier. When King passed away, it was about economics.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
this election has to be about our economics, and there has to be a increase in the wealth gap separation between those people who are melanated and those who are not. So Kamala, I need you to message on the economics and let our people know we will be better off with
a year
Kamala.
from now.
A year from now.
Economic
You understand me?
That's right.
Yeah, and let's be clear,
Yeah.
that whole farce about, you know, the Republicans about business and the
Yeah.
Democrats, that's
That's
not what
fake.
it is.
Yeah.
That's nothing but that's phantom.
Yep.
The difference between that is the taxation, what happens
There
with
we go.
taxes. But there's nothing that a Democrat is not about business.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
this phantom that they put up
Right.
to try to sway those persons with a big purse not to go in that direction.
Right.
It's about what happens with the taxes, how you get taxes, and the different tax shelters. But
Yeah.
in terms of business and being equitable and moving, both parties are pretty
Want the
equal
same.
in that. you
Yeah.
know?
Good point.
So this is the thing about education and civics, having a real understanding about the real ideology of the policies,
Right.
and stop using these boogeyman theories
Yeah,
to try to
all
sway
these
the purse.
buzzwords trying to fake us out.
Yeah,
You know, we're not gonna be hoodwinked no more.
Exactly.
You know, we're
So
not
that's
being
what it is.
bamboozled.
So a lot of this is education, and I'm going to tell you, I really believe that is the driving energy, being an educated voter, an informed voter,
Yeah.
that voter that knows what it is. So when someone comes to you, go, nah, I've seen that movie before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening.
Yeah.
This is what that is,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
going to energize people.
We ain't buying that ticket.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
We not
Whatever you're
buying that
selling,
ticket.
we're not buying.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
you're selling, we're not buying.
Well, I love this conversation. I wish we could keep talking some more, but for our listeners and viewers that are watching this is real talk happening literally before you right now. And all of you know this, you know, different spaces where real talk can happen is around food, around dinner. And one thing we're going to be doing is going to be enjoying some food here from our chef Adonis, who you'll be seeing a little bit more of a little bit later. But I wanted to thank all of our panelists here for just real talk on real issues that matter. So thank you very, very much.
Hey, thank you for having us. We appreciate it.